Sean is a fresher breath air. He just loved chain restaurants. Matter of fact, he ate at Applebee's 12 times during the 5 week.
I love each and most of you guys.
That really is still swollen, isn't it? It kind of looks like a football, actually.
Thank you for that.
Stitching, you got it.
Thank you.
Well,
Hey, D, I like donuts, baby. Let's go.
Stay focused. Work hard in school. You might not like school, but make sure you're working hard at school.
Then build the bomb. Then build the bomb.
It's your boy DM3, and you're listening to the Witty Not Funny Sports Podcast on the Built in Buffalo Podcast Network.
Witty Nation, welcome everyone to Witty Not Funny Sports Live, the self-rated #1 Buffalo sports show covering the Bills, Sabres, entertainment, and everything in between. And as always, part of the Built in Buffalo Podcast Network. Go check all the shows Built in Buffalo is giving you every single day. The best Bills content out there, YouTube, Facebook. Hopefully you watch The Basement before us. Watch Off the Edge on Saturdays. The Blitz on Tuesdays. Everything Built in Buffalo is giving you. Always the best. Of course, we are your hosts. I am at He's Tony. Tony, how you doing?
Fantastic, Matt, from what I can understand of you. It's a great night to be alive here in Western New York.
That it is. Big Bills win on Sunday against the Dolphins, wrapping up the AFC East title for the 4th straight time. Tony, before we get to our big special guest and listeners, viewers, thank you everyone for tuning in tonight to Witty Not Funny Sports Live. Please like, comment, subscribe, take a second, do all that. We really appreciate that. We really appreciate you tuning in tonight. Tony, before we get to our special guest, let's plug our apparel store, our t-shirt store. Everyone check out Teespring.com, search Witty Not Funny, or Google search Teespring Witty Not Funny. Check out all our designs, all original designs. Get your gear for the Bills playoff run, hopefully a long Bills playoff run, but check out all the cool original designs in our store. Support the podcast today. Teespring.com, search Witty Not Funny, or Google search Witty Not Funny Teespring, and we're your first result. So all original designs, all awesome. T-shirts, crew necks, hoodies. We got it all colors, all sizes. Get something for yourself or your loved ones today. Tony, we don't have time to waste, though. Let's bring on
Not a second.
Our special guest. Are you ready?
Yep. I very much.
Let's do it. Very much. Ladies and gentlemen, everyone, welcome his second time to the show, Mr. Alan Saunders, beat reporter for Steelers Now, here to talk some Bills Steelers with us. Alan, how you doing? Welcome back to the show.
I'm good. What's up, guys? You must not have scared me away too badly the first time, so that's good. It's always good to be invited back. It's always things must have gone okay.
It did go
okay is a good way to
I think
describe
so.
it.
I think that's a safe way to put it. We talk Bills Steelers. Everyone, leave your comments. If you have a question for Alan, he is in the locker room with the Steelers. He is on the front line with the Steelers. He knows the ins and outs of the Steelers organization and what is going on and what their weaknesses are and their strengths are, and we'll get into all that. But if you have a question, please leave it in the comments. We'll get to it and have Alan address that. Alan, I do have to take care of a couple footnotes before we start our talk here. First of all, welcome to the illustrious, the esteemed group we call the Double Dippers Club, being a second-time guest. So your official Double Dippers jacket will be in the mail, so look out for that. And your profile says on Twitter, make sure you follow Alan, and we'll give Alan's Twitter X handle before he departs here tonight. But your Twitter profile says award-winning podcast guest. So I guess by the transitive property, I think that makes us, Tony, an award-winning podcast. Congratulations,
I thought
Tony.
we already were.
We did it.
Congratulations to you. Yes. It's
Alan, I guess you'll be sending our award then in like the mail, Amazon Prime, something. I'm assuming, right?
Yeah, something like that. I was on Kelly Gramlich and Eric McLean do a podcast for the ACC network, and they had a whole off-season thing, and I was covering Pitt at the time, and they had me on, and the Pitt episode got the most views. And if you know anything about the ACC and Pitt, they're not the best and the brightest, right? Like, and so we made a big deal about it, and they sent me like a whole gift basket as like the award-winning podcast guest. So that's been in my Twitter bio since then. Maybe I will bring this podcast to bigger and better things. I don't know. We'll try. We're gonna give it the old college try.
I got accepted to Pitt. I don't know the brightest moniker there.
Well, not in athletics.
I don't know
right?
what that says about me.
They're kind of like they're kind of like an 8.
Oh, okay.
You know, they're just there. You know, they're not. Kenny Pickett was good for them.
Gotcha.
Other than that, it's been a pretty forgettable 40 years for Pitt football.
Okay, all right. I'll let it slide. And finally, Tony, I think we need to give Alan a disclaimer that everything and anything we know about Pittsburgh and the people of Pittsburgh solely comes from the Kroll Show skit, Pennsylvania. For anybody that watched the Nick Kroll Show on Comedy Central, there was a skit called Pennsylvania, which had to do with pawn shops in Pittsburgh and one in Philadelphia, and all the stereotypical tropes you could imagine. And that's all Tony and I know. So, Tony, right?
Yeah, Matt, I texted you in the middle of the week, and you asked me, do you have any questions for Alan? And I said, my only questions would be completely informed by Pennsylvania. I know nothing else.
And my response was, darn, mine too.
Yep. So that's where we are.
That's where we're at.
I'm not familiar.
Alan, again, thank you for joining the show. Really appreciate it.
He's definitely.
I've never seen this show, so I don't know. I don't have any response to the tropes. But look, if there are tropes about Pittsburghers, they're probably correct. They're very well known at this point. But yeah, I'm gonna have to look up the skit now because that's probably a good one.
We'll send you the link. It's a classic.
We'll send you some YouTube links.
All right,
Alan. Let me ask you this regarding Pittsburgh and the media. Then, what is, in your eyes, Pittsburgh's best representation in fictional TV or movies?
Like the one where we look the best or the most accurate?
Both or either.
Oh, that's a good one. Let's see. Pittsburgh's best representation in film or movies. I mean, like, sadly accurate. There's a show, I think it wasn't on HBO. I think it might have been on Showtime called, I want to say it's called American Rust, with Jeff Daniels as the lead. It's very dark. He's like the sheriff in a small town full of drug addicts in the post steel mill 1980s Pittsburgh. And man, like that is nailed on in terms of what it was like growing up here. It's much better now, but I feel like that is one of the things that really captures sort of what we're like. Trying to come up with one that makes us look better than that. And man, I don't know. There's not. We're not a notoriously film friendly city. They do make more movies in Pittsburgh than they used to. You know, people don't come to Pittsburgh for the. You know, they're here because they want to film a depressing movie, right? I mean, that's kind of the way things go. I don't know that I have a good answer for that. Adventureland is the one that keeps coming to my head. It's like a ridiculous 2000s comedy, which is set
I love that movie.
About an amusement park in Pittsburgh. And I think there's a very Pittsburgh's a big college town. We talked about Pitt already, and I think that movie has some like growing up as a like a young adult tropes that fit the sort of the vibe of maybe my generation of Pittsburghers anyway.
The only other one that I had in my eyes or in my mind was in That Thing You Do, the show in Pittsburgh, the Vicksburg in Pittsburgh.
Yes. I mean, there are lots of movies that were filmed here. Like
anytime Tony can reference That Thing You Do, he does.
The Dark Knight was filmed here. I just don't know that we.
Oh, yeah. That's another one. Yeah.
Much in common with fictional Gotham. Yeah. I don't know. You know, I guess. The other thing that was filmed here was that I really enjoyed, although I don't know really how much but it was the Mindhunter series that was filmed here as well, and it really looks like Pittsburgh, even though it's not set in Pittsburgh. But you can really see the city and kind of if you that's it. If you either you want to film something depressing or you want to film something where it looks like it might be the 1970s, we can do either one for you. That works either way.
I was going to say Mike Tomlin's coaching performance this year might be best compared to, or might be the best performance Pittsburgh has seen since Jean-Claude Van Damme in Sudden Death. That was also filmed in Pittsburgh. So
also filmed in Pittsburgh.
That's another trope. But Alan, let's get into this Bills Steelers matchup. Big wild card weekend. I don't want to just talk about the weather, which seems to be on the tip of everyone's tongue these days. But for Bills fans who are tuning into this program, just walk us through a quick, 2-3 minute elevator pitch of the Steelers season and kind of the roller coaster that it has been with Matt Canada and him getting fired midseason, much like the Bills fired their OC in the midseason, going through 3 quarterbacks, all the injuries and whatnot to defensive stalwarts like TJ Watt now, and Minka Fitzpatrick has been banged up this year. So give us the quick overview of the Steelers, your thoughts about the Steelers season this year.
Yeah, it's been a lot. I actually went through a little bit of PTSD there, just as you were recapping everything that I've covered in the last 6 months. Yeah, it's early in the season, first week they get blown out by the San Francisco 49ers, and it sure looked like this was not going to be a very good year. And then they went through this long time period where they found a way to win games that they probably did not deserve to win. They didn't play very well on offense. Kenny Pickett didn't play very well. It was a very obviously flawed team that relied on a ton of big plays from their defensive stars, and they just would hang around, and then beat a team. They beat the Browns. They got a pick 6 on the first play of the game. They got a fumble recovery for a touchdown late in the fourth quarter and basically did nothing. The whole 60 minutes in between. They played the Ravens, and the Ravens dropped every pass. It was just a team with a good record that didn't feel like a good team. And then Kenny Pickett got hurt. The bottom fell out, and they had one of the worst 3-game stretches I can really remember, certainly in my time covering the team. They lost back-to-back home games to 2-win teams in December, and it sure seemed like the season was over at that point. And then out of nowhere, third quarterback Mason Rudolph led the team to an incredible 3-game rally, scoring more points than they had at any point in this season, actually looking like a somewhat dangerous offense, and basically eliminating the Bengals and the Seahawks from the playoffs in back-to-back weeks before beating half of the Baltimore Ravens in a monsoon to put themselves in playoff position. It's been a ride, and I honestly am not quite sure how we got to where we are right now.
So Mason, you talked about you having PTSD from the season recap. Did Mason Rudolph ever have PTSD from a player taking his helmet off and smacking him with it? Surprised he's still able to function.
The Steelers were playing the Browns this year, and Kenny Pickett was in a quarterback. They did a quarterback sneak on a 4th down. Pickett ends up at the bottom of the pile, and his helmet pops off, and it literally rolls directly to the feet of Myles Garrett. He is the only person around, and he picks up Kenny Pickett's helmet, and 3 Steelers run over no, we know what you can do with that, man. No, you can't. That's not a thing. So yeah, it's Mason Rudolph, man. What a career! What a career arc, right? Plays in 2019. Doesn't play that well. Gets a concussion on a huge hit against the Ravens, and then the incident with Myles Garrett, and now kind of gets forgotten about, right? Gets pushed to 3rd on the depth chart forever. Plays 2 kind of uninspiring games, one on a random Week 17 game and one when Ben Roethlisberger had COVID, neither of which really moved the needle for everybody. He was a free agent for a month this spring, and nobody called. And then all of a sudden, he's the savior of the season. It's been, frankly, unbelievable. And, I don't know. I think about half of the fan base is all in on Mason Rudolph starting and printing the jerseys and ready for him to be the starting quarterback of the future. And the other half is just waiting for the other shoe to drop because this can't possibly be happening.
Yeah, makes total sense. It does feel like almost like kind of a mirror copy of the Bills offense or the Bills season with their, like I mentioned, their offensive coordinator getting fired. Kind of like the Steelers started really hot. I think they were 7-4 at one point before faltering, and then like the Bills, winning those final couple games to get into the playoffs. What have the vibes been around the team throughout this season? I saw you tweeted, and if you don't follow Alan on Twitter, please go to our Twitter at WaySports716 there. Give us a follow and then follow Alan. We tagged him on this post. But you mentioned earlier, like the Steelers locker room coming into this game is like weirdly confident. Is that just kind of a front, much like teams just do in the playoffs when they're 9-10 point underdogs, whatever Vegas has them at right now? Or do you think like this team actually thinks like Mason Rudolph can go to an away game and lead them to victory? And a TJ Wattless team at that.
I don't think it's just the Steelers 2 years ago were 14-point underdogs going into Kansas City, and like that team was like shuffling off to its slaughter, and like everybody knew it. Like this feels different. I think part of it is just they've been in 3 straight must-win games already, and I think they feel. I think there is a house money aspect to it, where 3 weeks ago the New York Times had them as a 4% chance to make the playoffs. Like, I don't think anybody, I don't want to say the players didn't believe, but the expectations were that they would not even get this far. And they've been playing really well. And I do think there is some of that. I also think the Steelers have a sort of weird coaching paradigm where people around the country love and respect Mike Tomlin. Steelers fans are actually generally not a huge fan. But one of the I think there's some points to be made by both those sides. But one of the things he's pretty unquestionably good at is coaching against teams he's familiar with. The Steelers went 5-1 in the division this year. They've never finished last in the entire history of the AFC North. And they are good at playing against teams that they see over and over again. This will be the 6th time in 5 years that the Steelers will play the Bills if you count the preseason game earlier this year. I get the sense that a lot of this confidence I'm feeling from the locker room right now is like, hey, we've got a plan. And like, is it going to work? I don't know. But I do think that there's a plan that the Steelers players have seen and are buying into, that they think they have a chance to win in a far more significant way than I remember from that Kansas City game 2 years ago.
So it sounds like you're kind of thinking like, what's really like the source of this confidence? Like you said, Mason Rudolph a lot. Like, does that really, like, is that the catalyst of this confidence? Is like, yeah, Rudolph is slinging it, so we're rolling with that. And is that kind of like, is that the essence of the game plan in their minds, or is this a Tomlin? Like, how do you think they're going to approach this game from the game plan perspective?
Well, Rudolph's been playing really well, but he also hasn't been like the guy. Like, it's not like he's throwing for 500 yards and 4 touchdowns in all these games, like he's still very much playing within the offense. He's not turning the football over. I think that's been a big key for them. They're running the ball really, really well. They have been running the ball really, really well for the last few weeks. But the last 2 weeks have been probably Najee Harris's best 2 games, maybe considering the stakes, his best 2 games as a Steeler. I think they're getting hot. I think that's probably it. I think when a team comes into the playoffs, they can pretty honestly say they probably played 3 of their best 4 games all season in the last 3 weeks. I think that's a good part of it. And then I do think that Mike Tomlin has these guys believing in whatever sort of game plan he's put forward in a way that feels real and feels significant. The offensive coaching staff, since they fired Matt Canada, didn't go really well at first. but I have to give them a lot of credit these last couple of weeks. They came in with very different game plans for each of those 3 games. And it's not like they're spamming the same thing over and over again and having success. They've diversified a little bit. I don't think it really rests on one player at this point. So I think I understand the optimism from the locker room. I also understand that the Bills are a heck of a lot better football team. So we'll see how far that optimism goes, but I definitely feel it.
How has this Eddie Faulkner, Mike Sullivan combo? Eddie Faulkner was promoted to interim offensive coordinator. Mike Sullivan, it seems like, is handling play calling duties. How has that differentiated itself from what Matt Canada was doing, which was seemingly everything the players didn't want to do? There's a great video of Kenny Pickett in the middle of the season throwing the game-winning touchdown pass to, I think it was Pickens. I forget which game specifically, because we're Bills fans here, obviously. So, but then they show Matt Canada up in the booth, and he was like mad that they won the game because I think Pickett audibled out of the play call Canada wanted, or called. But how has Faulkner and Sullivan kind of put their stamp on this offense? How has it changed from the Matt Canada days?
I just think I think their game plans feel better. It's the same playbook. I mean, I haven't seen maybe 1 or 2. I haven't seen a ton of like brand new plays that I haven't seen before. I just think the game plan works better, where it feels more intentional about what they're trying to do to an opponent and what the goal is of the offense for that game. Feels like you can see it. Like, even if you're not in the huddle, like you can kind of watch the offense, and it seems like they're calling plays with an intent and a purpose. Felt like Matt Canada had a decent scheme, but would just it was like he was calling the game with his eyes closed. Like they would call a play and then they would call another play that didn't have anything to do with the previous one and didn't set anything else up in the future. And it seems like they've really honed in on that. I think they're managing the 2 running backs much better. Splitting the carries and there's playing time between Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren, but also like featuring the guy that happens to be working better that day to a better extent than they were before. That change also sort of corresponded, not quite, but just about, with the change. They went with Broderick Jones, their first round pick, at right tackle. He's been a really good run blocker for them. And that, I just think the running game being better makes everything work better on an offense that was designed from the beginning to be able to run the football, and they really couldn't for the first half of the season.
Yeah, I think it's been interesting to see not only the shift on the field from the Steelers, but almost a shift in attitude. And that usually happens when there's new change in coordinators or coaches or whatnot. We've seen throughout this season, coordinators or coaches getting canned, and the team coming out the next week and just being rejuvenated for in some way, shape, or form. But there's been, from what I can tell, and you're on the inside, so tell me if I'm wrong, but there's been a ton of reports about Pickens' attitude. There's been a ton of reports about Deontay Johnson's attitude. And it's affected my fantasy team, both those guys. So I pay attention, trust me. But has that attitude within the locker room changed now that they are in the playoffs? And whether it's not blocking on a run play or not running their route to the full speed, do you see an attitude shift from these Steelers coming into this game?
I don't think there's an attitude shift from the team as a whole, but especially on offense, it's a very young offense. Isaac Seumalo, they got as a free agent from the Eagles this offseason. He's the left guard. He's really the only guy in this offense that has had any kind of playoff success. They're young and they don't know what they don't know. And I think that a lot of these guys needed to grow up. And I think Deontay Johnson isn't that young. But I think there's when you don't have that many, and Isaac Seumalo also nearly silent man. So not the one that's gonna be rah-rahing the troops. He's done it, but he's not that personality type. And so I just think that they kind of lost their way in terms of leadership and focus on what really the big picture was. And I don't know if it was Mason Rudolph that helped them find that. I don't know if it was just overcoming adversity as a team that helped them find that, but I think it's real, and I think it's happened that there feels on offense. I never felt any of that on the defensive side of the ball. All that was all the offensive guys, mostly the skill position guys, but it does feel different now as we move into the playoffs, especially compared to 5 or 6 weeks ago.
So if this new sort of like coaching staff dynamic has, I guess, like plugged some holes or at least, figured out some adjustments to make, like you said, what's something the Bills can look to, like where's the weakness? Like what are some players or positions that you think the Bills would look to exploit in this coming game, since some of what was weaknesses have now turned to strengths? And is it just as simple as, TJ Watt is out, like exploit there because that there's a depth situation, or should the Bills game planning be looking elsewhere?
I think the big thing that maybe people in Pittsburgh haven't talked enough about is that over this 3-game stretch, at no point have the Steelers gotten Mason Rudolph into a place where he had to throw the football. They were connected in every game, even if they weren't winning. It was one score, whatever. He ran 1 2-minute drill against Baltimore. It was in a monsoon, so let's give him the benefit of the doubt, but it was by far the worst 2-minute drill the Steelers have had all season. Okay, he fumbled the ball twice. The second one got turned over, and it wasn't going well before that fumble. He's not very mobile, and they don't pass protect particularly well. So if I'm Buffalo, the game plan has to be whether you do it by your defense stopping the run, or you do it by your offense scoring and making them keep up, one way or the other. Buffalo has to get the Steelers in places where they put Mason Rudolph in obvious passing situations, because I think Buffalo's pass rushers are outstanding. And I think they have a clear talent advantage in the pass rush, inside and outside. And the Steelers have minimized that by staying in games and staying on schedule from down to down. So one way or the other, either get them in 3rd and long or get them down by 2 scores. And I think this game tilts pretty heavily towards Buffalo if that can happen.
Do you think how much confidence? Sorry, man. How much confidence do you have in?
Well, it's the question.
How much confidence do you have in the Steelers line? You're very complimentary towards our pass rush, towards their defensive line. So in that, what do you make of that trench battle?
I think the Steelers can run the ball on the Bills. Especially, with the fact that since the Milano injury, Buffalo's basically only played nickel. And the Steelers are going to go heavy against it. They're going to play 2 and 3 tight ends, try to make Buffalo adjust. But I think the Steelers can run the ball. I don't think they can protect Rudolph if the Bills pass rushers get in a place where they can really pin their ears back. So we'll see. Look, if the weather's miserable, maybe, but neither team's going to want to throw the ball. I don't know. I think the weather is a big wild card in the wild card. And maybe, the best laid plans kind of go to the side if there's, inches per hour of snow falling during this game, or 50, 60 mile an hour wind gusts either way. But if it's, a kind of normal football game, I think Buffalo is definitely going to want the Steelers to be trying to throw the ball in obvious passing situations. I do think the Steelers can run the ball. And, I think the other way, I think Buffalo can run the ball too. I've been super impressed by the last, 5 or 6 weeks now of the way this offense looks and the way they've utilized James Cook. I think he's a huge factor in this game. I don't think many people would think that the Bills at the beginning of this year would be looking at a playoff game where the game plan was, hey, maybe take the air out of the ball this time. But, the Steelers live on that turnover. And I think Josh Allen is the turnover guy. As much as he is their best player, I think James Cook is certainly good enough to shoulder a heavier part of the load than he has at every point this season and take that turnover card out of, I think the Steelers' really only chance to win this game is if Buffalo helps them win it. I really believe that. And too many times this year, Buffalo has done that. And usually it happens when the football's in Josh Allen's hands. I think if I'm both teams, really, I want to try to run the ball, and I think both teams will be able to run the ball.
I think that's the sentiment around here too, is like the Bills, if the Bills lose, it'll be most likely because they beat themselves, because we're so used to them beating themselves. If not, and really as of lately in the last like quarter of the season, we just beat ourselves. We just didn't do it for the entire game. So, we didn't do it for enough of the game that yielded a loss. So what about on the other side?
We always say the Bills' biggest opponent, right, Tony? The Bills' biggest opponent is ourselves. Like
I said earlier this week, it's never a good thing when you're in a playoff game and your game plan involves your opponent needing to shoot themselves in the foot. But the Bills are basically like a 3-year-old with a revolver at this point. So, like, actually, your chances aren't that bad. You know, like, it could come true.
It's the Josh Allen experience. Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything is edge of your seat, either amazing or it's like, what are you doing? As we saw, like, what was 2 weeks ago, Tony, when he was just like decided to lateral like out of nowhere during the game.
Oh yeah, that was fun.
A couple of times, like that was fun. Yeah, for fun is probably a better word. I want to get to a question here from Twitter X, and listeners and viewers, please leave your questions if you have any. But how do you think the Steelers will cover Kincaid? I think this is a good question because we've seen the emergence of Dalton Kincaid, especially in the middle of the field, towards the end of the season, these past couple of weeks, and even going back to when the Steelers played the Bills in the preseason. Yes, it's second stringers and whatnot, and not full game plans, but that was really the first game, and Tony might have a different opinion, but that was really the first game that I said, like, oh, this is how we can use Dalton Kincaid effectively. And, we always say on this show, like, he can be too athletic for a linebacker, and he can be too big for a nickel slot corner. So he's really an X factor, in my opinion. So how do you think the Steelers cover Dalton Kincaid, and do you think he will be a factor? And do these Steelers have trouble covering tight ends in the middle of the field that you've seen this year?
Yeah, my gut instinct is they're going to cover Dalton Kincaid poorly, and that's based on the fact that that's how they've covered pretty much every tight end all year.
Be honest.
Look, the Steelers have started 7 different inside linebackers and 7 different safeties this season, which feels like it probably has to be an NFL record, but I don't really want to do the research that would be involved to look that up. They have 2 inside linebackers that are out for the season with injuries, both of their starters. They have 2 strong safeties that are out for the season. One was a co-starter and his direct backup. Minkah Fitzpatrick had missed several weeks with a hamstring, played through a broken hand, and now might come back this week. He says he will, from a knee injury. It's been a disaster in the middle of the field for the Steelers defense. And Elandon Roberts, who I'm sure Bills fans are familiar with since he's been in the division his entire career until now, was signed by the Steelers to be like their like veteran old guy in the linebacker room to like keep things together. And my like mental picture for you of Elandon Roberts is like a guy with like a roll of duct tape and a bale of wire, just like repairing a house all season. Like he's just been there in the middle of like things are falling apart, and he's just like, we'll patch that up over there, or I don't know. Let me see if I can reach that too. He's playing through a bad pec injury and is probably going to be covering one of those tight ends for a good stretch of this game. And coverage is not his thing to begin with. I mean, he's the thumper in the run game, but he didn't come to Pittsburgh with that reputation. Minkah Fitzpatrick coming back will be a big help in one of those places, but I suspect, I don't know, that they're going to want somebody to give some help on Stephon Diggs. So you can only do so much. Gabe Davis not playing would be a big help to that plan, because at least then you feel like maybe you don't need to help both corners. But, DeMonte KZ and Minkah Fitzpatrick. KZ served a 3-game suspension in there too. That's the other guy they haven't had. Those are the 2 safeties. One of those 2 guys is probably going to cover Kincaid when he's down the field. Up front, it'll be Roberts. It'll be Michael Walker or Miles Jack, who was retired until October and is playing significant playing time in this defense right now. That's just the way it's gone for them in linebacker and safety. So it's a mess. I expect Kincaid to be able to have a big game because I just really don't think they have the horses to run with those guys down the middle of the field.
I would love that.
So.
I would. Yeah, I mean, since I'm basically anticipating with the weather, not to beat the dead weather horse, but like basically anticipating with the weather, if the key to victory ends up being that passing centric, that would be like a lot of fun and would kind of like take the edge off of, I think, a lot of Bills fans who are just anticipating the worst when it comes to the weather and anticipating it being a huge hindrance.
It's interesting to me that the Bills fans are also freaking out about the weather because the Steelers fans are freaking out about the weather too. So I don't know that it really helps either team. I'm not. I don't. It was very funny to talk to Minkah Fitzpatrick today about the weather, and he was like, "Do you know the Bills? They're going to throw it. I don't care if it's like 10 feet of snow. They're going to throw it. It's the Buffalo Bills. Like Josh Allen can throw the ball harder than anybody in the league. I'll get wind or snow that is going to slow that guy down. Like we're going out there expecting them to still be the Buffalo Bills no matter what."
Just hope they learn their lesson. And Tony, you might agree or disagree, but from the previous was it last year's Bills Patriots win bowl, where it was like all running, and in the fourth quarter the Bills started throwing a little. It's like, oh, we could have done this all game, and it probably would have worked a little better. I hope the Bills just learn their lesson if the weather does play a factor on Sunday, like we expect it to. Alan, we have a couple more minutes here with you, so. Your media compadre Andrew Filipponi was on Sports Talk Radio in Buffalo, and he was very pessimistic about these Steelers' chances, saying the Bills would win by 30, and the Steelers have no chance without TJ Watt. And he had the data to back it up, but he was very pessimistic. I don't want to play the pessimistic, optimistic card here, but before you go, give us one key to victory for the Steelers, what they can do, and then one key to victory that you think the Bills can do that will make all the difference come Sunday.
I think a key to victory for the Steelers involves getting Josh Allen to turn the ball over. I think that's number one. Whether that comes from their edge rushers behind TJ Watt are not bad. They don't have TJ is one of the best players in the league, and they don't. They won't have him. But Alex Highsmith is very good. Marcus Golden is a been there, done that vet, and Nick Herbig was a 4th round pick out of Wisconsin. Is like 85% TJ Watt. He's just like TJ, but a little bit shorter. It's like if TJ had like an 8-year younger brother who follows him around everywhere. That's Nick Herbig. He's only played like 20 snaps ever in a game, but he just has a knack for making big plays every time he does. Steelers fans are actually like irrationally excited about this guy getting to play, even though TJ is not. I expect him to make an impact just because he always seems to every time he's on the field. They'll still be able to rush the passer, even without TJ Watt. They just won't have the guy who's maybe the best at it in the league right now. But, they've got to find a way, whether it's with the coverage. Joey Porter Jr. is a really, really good rookie. The Steelers have leaned on him absurdly heavily. I mean, they played the Seahawks, and that's a really good 1-2-3 receiver matchup. And they basically said, here's DK Metcalf. You're on your own. Have fun with them. Like the rest of us will be over here. And I think that's quite a credit to his play as the rookie. He's going to draw digs most of the day. It's a battle he can win. Like he's not better than Stephon Diggs, but he can get his. And if he gets an interception, it's a huge play. And so I think they've got to find a way to turn the ball over, put their offense on some short fields, and not make them sustain long drives to score. And on offense, they've just got to keep up this running game stuff. I'm not sure what the secret is. They've been going heavy, and like that Seattle game, man, the whole second half, they had 3 tight ends in the game. And they were doing everything but yell across the line, "We're running it. Here we come. Try and stop us." And they were running it anyway. And I think if they can get to that point on offense against this Bills defense, which is not that great against the run, and likes to play light anyway, will be uncomfortable trying to match heavy personnel. I think if they can do that, they certainly can give themselves an advantage. For Buffalo, I think it's pretty easy. It's just let your talent win. Like just don't let the Steelers out of the bag. I feel like think about that 2021 game where the Steelers won in the opener, right? It was the blocked punt that goes for a touchdown that changes the beginning of that game, and then all of a sudden the Steelers are in it, and then they find a way to win it. And then you compare that to the game last year where it was just all like it was over in 5 minutes. You know, I think this can be a game that can be over in 5 minutes if the Bills play to their talent. They just can't let the Steelers in the game.
Alan, my question about Herbig, who you mentioned, is this. What is up with the Steelers' obsession with uniting siblings in this league? Every time there's like a brotherhood in this league, it goes through the Steelers.
So Mike Tomlin actually talked about this, and he says it's not just siblings, but anyone who like it was the son of an NFL player or the nephew of an NFL player or their cousin played in the NFL or whatever. He said one of the things that, you know, for us is like those players that have watched someone go through the transition to the NFL before, they feel have a far higher rate of basically like not washing out. Like you're not going to get a character 0 on someone whose brother is in the league, like because and I think his direct quote was like, it's not mystical to them, it's real. Like if you have a college player who has never watched anyone go through this process before, they don't know what they're getting into. But when you have a player who has that family relationship, that personal experience, they're more ready to go through it. And so it's a real strategy for them. They absolutely target NFL bloodlines, you know, on purpose. There are juniors of players littered through the Steelers, not just Joey Porter's son, but all over, cousins and brothers. And yeah, I mean, that's a real strategy for them.
I was
Levi Wallace, of course, cousin of
Right.
NASCAR driver Rusty Wallace.
Yeah, I'm not
As
sure
we
how
all
that
know.
one goes. Yeah.
No, that's good. I always liked that the Steelers had, you know, Derek Watt and TJ Watt or the Edmonds, and you know, it's an interesting that Tomlin promotes that almost. It's not just a coincidental thing. So before we say our goodbye, Alan, and once again, thank you for being on the show. I think we owe it to all the listeners, all the viewers, and I'm going to put it up on the screen here so viewers have a better understanding. Yinzer versus Jagoff. Explain those two terms and what they mean and why they're in the lexicon of native Pittsburghans.
Ooh, okay. So Yinzer is a sort of, it's a loaded term, right? Like it could be used as an insult, but it could also be a point of pride. A Yinzer is just a stereotypical Pittsburgher, right? Like it's generally referred to like people of an older generation. So like maybe in my like someone younger, like I guarantee Gen Z would use Yinzer as an insult, right? Because like you wouldn't want to be like, you know, somebody's uncle who like drinks Bud Heavy and like, you know, smokes Winston's at the corner bar, right? Like that's the Yinzer is the big city version of a townie, right? Like there's just like the people that are here, that are of the place, that are always around. They're the people that call into talk radio stations and speak with an exaggerated accent, and we love them and also are aware of their shortcomings, but will still support them and care for us. And so it's this sort of like it's like half derision, half source of pride kind of term. Jagoff is all negative. A Jagoff is just a jerk. It's someone you don't want to be. It's also like an othering term. Like you can't be a Yinzer Jagoff. Like you're not usually. You know, Jagoff is generally someone from out of town. You know, like an uppity New York Jagoff. You know, came into my company as a consultant and said we're going to lay off 13 people this month. You know, like that would be, I think. And you know, one of the things I've always appreciated about Pittsburgh and Buffalo is that I think that they are cities with very similar hearts. I think they have a lot in common about the people. I've told this joke before, but I'll tell it again because I think your audience will appreciate it. The Steelers have pump-up song they play in the fourth quarter of games when their defense is on the field. They have like a elaborate scoreboard video set to it, and it is set to the opening of Renegade by Styx, which is sort of funny that this trend didn't start when Renegade or Styx was popular. This trend started in like 2008. Okay, so like that's where Pittsburgh is, right? And so, of course, when the Bills win, they sing along to Shout. And I always say, like, Buffalo was the only city that was like, Styx, that was a good idea. We should have done that. Every other city in the country is like, why do you care about this 40-year-old rock band? But no, Buffalo's like, that's cool. That's cool. We do our thing with Shout, but like, that was a good idea. Only in Buffalo would that be the response to
right.
They're very, very similar cities. But I feel like the thing that sets Pittsburgh apart is our absurd language. We have this dialect, and we invent our own words. If you've heard the Pat McAfee show, you kind of will understand what I'm talking about there. So that is Yinzer and Jagoff are both sort of part of that Pittsburgh dialect, where I don't know where these words came from. They're not English, but they're kind of ours. And we have plenty of others, but those are two probably the most famous ones.
So, Alan, I hope this is...
I think it's the radio host, Tony. Is it the radio host that disbanded or like did away with all wings in preparation for this game in Pittsburgh?
Yeah,
like,
I didn't hear about this.
People can't eat wings.
We try.
He would be a Jagoff, right? He'd be a Jagoff.
Listen, there was one that said don't eat wings. Then there was another. There was a restaurant looking for publicity that said we're not going to serve buffalo sauce this week. And I tried to tell them that if you really want to troll Buffalo,
Jagoffs
would be to just stop serving blue cheese and serve ranch with everything. That would be a far more effective protest if you really wanted to make the people of Buffalo feel some type of way.
It's like us putting fries on our salad because who else does that except Pittsburgh? No one.
No, that is our thing.
It's ludicrous. It's insane. Tony, what were you going to say before we say our goodbyes?
Yinzer is, by the way, so Yins is like our plural you in the Pittsburgh dialect. So as a Southerner would say y'all, a Pittsburgher would say Yins. And that's why it became this sort of term to refer to someone that might speak with that exaggerated accent.
So, Alan, it's self-reflection time. Where would you put yourself on the Yinzer scale? How Yinzer are you, if I'm saying it appropriately?
I feel like that's a hard thing to self-assess. I do not think I am that much of a Yinzer, but I guarantee that everyone that I know is a Yinzer would also say that. And so I don't know where the line is. I will say this. My wife is from New Jersey. We go to her house for, her family's house for holidays and things. And I know that I'm different. Like, there's no question that I don't belong there. That's for sure. And so I definitely have some Yinzer. I do put French fries on salads. I don't drink Bud Heavy, or Iron City for that matter, which is, I guess, the more stereotypical drink. But I think there's certainly a little bit of Yinzer in all of us. And that is why it is that kind of back and forth insult and source of pride amongst our people.
Well, you're definitely our favorite Yinzer to have on this show. So thank you once again for coming on. Great insight into the Steelers. Everyone, if you haven't followed Alan, please tell everyone who is listening and viewing in where they can find you on Twitter and all your work you do.
Yeah, at @Saunders_PGH on Twitter and Instagram and all the cool social medias. And then my work covering the Steelers is at SteelersNow.com. At PGH Steelers Now is the site's account. My podcast is the Steelers Afternoon Drive. You can find it on YouTube or anywhere you find podcasts. And we're on Monday through Friday about 5 p.m.
Perfect. Make sure you go follow Alan. Check out, especially in the lead up to this game, or if you're just a fan of the NFL, check out everything Alan does. Always great insight. Always a welcome guest. Alan, thank you so much for joining our show, taking the time tonight out of your busy schedule, which I'm sure. Are you going to be in town for the game? Last question.
As long as there's not 8 feet of snow, I'll be there. We'll be there. As long as they're not moving the game to Cleveland, I'll be in Buffalo.
I know. All right, who wants to go to Cleveland? No one.
No one.
Cleveland doesn't even want to go to Cleveland. One of my favorite jokes ever from the movie The Rocker, Will Arnett says, "Go back to Cleveland, Cleveland." Like nobody wants to be in Cleveland, so hopefully it stays in Buffalo. Alan, thank you so much for joining the show. We'd love to have you back on in the future. You're always welcome here.
Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it.
And we'll see you Sunday.
Awesome. Have a good night.
At the stadium.
See you Sunday. Look for Alan.
Bye.
Bye, Alan.
Bye, Alan. Thanks a lot.
Listeners, viewers, awesome guest Alan Saunders from Steelers Now. Always a pleasure. We had him on last year when the DeMar Hamlin incident came about, and just great insight. Everything going on in the Pittsburgh region and the Steelers on the inside in the locker room. Make sure you go follow Alan. Awesome follow. Tony, any other things? Great guest, always a great guest.
Good guest.
I feel like we need to do a couple minutes from a Bills perspective. We talked a lot about from a Steelers perspective, obviously with Alan. Anything else though before we send it to legendary coach Marv Levy?
Just
with
a
legendary voice.
That Yin's just a wealth of information. Had it all locked in, like even with the siblings thing, which in my mind I'm like, oh, this is like a half joke question. And it's like, oh no, there's like super insightful things behind it. Loved.
You totally mentioned it as a jokey question. He's like, no, that's a thing.
Yeah. Totally full of what was I gonna say? Like totally full of just like insight on it all. Really knows his stuff. Great to see him. I hope I run into him at the stadium on Sunday.
Yeah. Make sure you look out for Alan at the stadium Sunday, if he can make it, of course, with this giant snowstorm coming in. Tony, let's send it to Marv. We'll talk a little Bills Dolphins and our thoughts as Bills fans going into this playoff game. Here we go. Let's send it to Marv. We'll be back after the break.
Go, Bills fight, Bills go. Come on, let's win for Buffalo.
And we are back. Viewers, listeners, if you haven't yet, like, comment, subscribe, hit that like, take 1 second, a little click of that mouse or the mouse pad or whatever you do to hit that like. Please do. Really appreciate the likes. We have super chats. We have everything. So make sure you interact. We love hearing from you guys. Tony, huge game on Sunday. I will say before we get into our review, if the Titans did not win earlier, we would all be shitting our pants come 8 o'clock on Sunday night. That was way too close for comfort, with or without a playoff spot locked in. But because we had the playoff spot locked in, thanks to the Titans being the Jaguars, I was a little more at ease. But if that didn't happen, oh boy, would it have been a scene throughout that, at least that first half, even probably the whole game of the Dolphins game. What were your vibes throughout Sunday?
You bring that up, and it makes me realize, like, if the Titans didn't win, this definitely, I can say with certainty, would have been not the first time that I wept legitimate tears just from being overwhelmed of a week during a week 18 or during the last week of the season Dolphins game. Like it would have been
right.
It would have been beside myself overwhelming, and it would have been a tough ride, and I would not have slept. So in the sense, thank you to the Titans, not just for getting us into the playoffs and the opportunity at the 2 seed, but thanks for well, I guess we had that anyway. But thanks for putting me in a position where I could sleep that night, at least for a little bit. But man, I was uppity after, because the vibes were tense, like you said. The vibes were the vibes were anger a lot. And then what happened is it was getting late, and so I think I was like in that weird pseudo like kind of like delirium kind of asleep, but like I do know it's like I have consciousness, but I'm not, like, part of my brain is off.
Right.
And then I know that I didn't comprehend the punt return when it happened. And then and my wife was laying next to me on the couch, and she like hits me in the chest, and she's like, "Oh," and starts like freaking out about it. And I was like, "Oh!" And then because I'm so superstitious, I closed my eyes for every play of action for the rest of the game, and that's when we were successful. So like I'm laying there, and then like, okay, Tua takes the snap. I close my eyes. I get the vibe that like what was going to happen happened, and then I opened it to see what happened. And guess what? We owned the second half. You're welcome, everybody.
We did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tony. It's like your own little virtual reality when you close your eyes.
Yeah, it kind of is, I guess.
Just
Audio
escape into this world of what could be. That's funny.
And then that became reality because it
Yeah.
was like super wild and fun from that point on. Like a lot of things to minorly celebrate in the second half.
Yes, absolutely. Let's get into the So Bad It's Good review. Really short one because I want to talk a little bit while we have the time tonight about this playoff game and a little bit about the Dolphins game and kind of interconnect the two. So short, So Bad It's Good review, but we got to do it because we do it every week. Tony, here we go. Hit the music. Week 18. The Bills entered the final week of the season against Miami, looking to put the AFC title in a vice. Tua Tagovailoa was wishing his offensive line wasn't playing hide and seek as he was looking, but couldn't find any protection behind a busted condom from the Bills' D line. You've been struck by a smooth Sherfield. Really blowing this tonight. Tyreek Hill yelled fire in the house as the Dolphins chased Claypool, their home playoff hopes, away. Ring around the rosy. Mike McDaniel's team blowsy. He wolf. The Dolphins go down. Bills win 24-14. I really stumbled on that one, Tony.
Matt, criminal. 3 syllables. Trent Sherfield.
Criminal.
3 syllables. What are we doing? What
I'm off my game.
Your inability to match that cadence was truly criminal.
I know. It was. I was really off on that one. That's why it's so bad. It's good because it is so bad.
Struck by a trencher. Or shit, I messed it up.
a smooth Sherfield.
No, you got Trent Sherfield.
That was an amazing. Like, was that the moment that Trent Sherfield touchdown catch? I don't know if it qualifies as it does on the score sheet in the box score, but it was just a pure luck play. But was that the moment where it was the moment for me? Was it the moment for you where it kind of turned and been like, okay, maybe destiny is on our side? Like that pass could have went anywhere. It could have popped up anywhere. It could have been caught by anyone. But it was caught by the Bills player in the back of it perfectly trajectory perfect down into Trent Sherfield's arms. I'm like, all right, this is a destiny thing now. Maybe we can win this game despite shooting ourselves in the foot multiple times with Josh Allen interceptions and so on and so forth in the red zone.
The only reason that I'm hesitating to agree with what you're saying is because it's too similar to what Chris Collinsworth said on the broadcast, and I don't want to validate what Chris Collinsworth says, so I will choose to like sidestep what you're saying or to distance myself from what you're saying. But I will say I audibly screamed in my living room about how Trent Sherfield completely redeemed the entire season of himself in that moment. And I think I texted you the same thing, like Trent Sherfield just all is forgiven with Trent Sherfield over that move that he pulled off. That was insane.
And then at the final play, I texted you back, all is forgiven on my behalf with Taylor Rapp closing the game out and picking off that pass from Tua. No, you're right. Like Trent Sherfield had a really good game. I don't know if he was because he was playing his old team from last year, if it was just he was finally given the opportunity and things kind of just fell into place. But not only that touchdown catch, he made a huge first down catch in the middle of the field on a very difficult in traffic pass from Josh Allen, and he came out with it. I felt validated. You felt validated because, like, all the things we naysayed about Fred Sherfield all year. And I felt the same way. It was like, when I always say, if Trent Sherfield has just as much opportunity as Gabe Davis, would we see the same production from Trent Sherfield? And this game was kind of like, oh, maybe that would be the case, even though I never thought that.
Yeah, like
between weeks like 6 and 18.
Right, because because like, how could we possibly trust him in a role like that?
Right.
And also, he's too similar, not in talent, but in skill set, like Gabe Davis has a different skill set, is what I'm saying. So, like, I would want and like, a Gabe Davis on the other side. If Gabe Davis could get literally any production out of his time on the field, that would just be nice, instead of these zeros that he's coming in. I mean, I know he got injured, but this is not the only zero game. But I tell you who didn't have a zero game, tell you who went over 100 yards, Matt. The century mark, and the century man himself. The He-Wolf.
Hashtag
6
He-Wolf.
receptions, 105 yards. And so many yak yards.
Tons of yak. He-Wolf is the yak king. He is the
Wolves and yaks.
Yak He-Wolf king. Yeah, wolves and
Fantastic
yaks.
animals.
Like Yinzers and Jagoffs.
Yeah.
Wolves and yak. He-Wolf was incredible. Every time there needed to be a play, He-Wolf, Khalil Shakir made that play. Over 100 yards, as you mentioned. And to Gabe Davis's credit, he did spring that block on the bubble screen for 50 yards early in the game that He-Wolf took. The first bubble screen, I think, a Ken Dorsey or Joe Brady offense has run successfully. And lo and behold, who is it? It's the He-Wolf running it. So no shock there. If you run it to Diggs, 0 yards, maybe -1 if you're lucky. If you run it to He-Wolf, 50 yards, 50-plus yards. That's just how it goes. He-Wolf might be the most important player going into this.
And I like that you said that, and I like the proof, because to me, like, a game like this, where there's like so much on the line and it's tense and it needs, someone with a crunch factor, and then He-Wolf steps up like that gives me a new element, at least in my love affair with He-Wolf, about that, like,
our love affair.
He has like that X factor sort of, it's all on the line. Like, he has the confidence and steps up. It's not too big for him.
Right. And I think that was the story of this Miami game, and maybe it might be the story going into the playoffs with all these injuries, is unsung heroes just stepping up, whether it's Khalil Shakir, whether it's Trent Sherfield, whether it's Ryan Vandermark coming in for a very important series for Deion Dawkins, who had,
whether it's,
I don't know if he was attacked by, like, or Balin Spector coming in for Terrell Dodson, or Dane Jackson coming in for Rasul Douglas, like, just guys stepping up. And that's kind of Sean McDermott's MO in terms of defensive philosophy, right? Is, when your number is called, you are expected to play up to the person you're replacing, the starter, obviously. But all these guys stepped up in a big way and made some big plays. And with the injuries that are carrying over from Sunday and possibly into this wild card playoff game, these guys are going to probably need to be stepping up again here. And it's a nice problem to have, I guess. Like, yes, the stakes are a lot higher. Yes, the gravity is a lot higher than with the playoffs. Obviously, losing, you're out, you're done for the season. Winning, you continue. All or nothing, do or die. So these players, a lot of them, the Balin Spectors of the world, Trent Sherfield, even though he was in Miami last year and they made the wild card, but that was kind of their peak. I don't know if they expected to go any farther. But these guys are going to need to step up, don't you think?
Matt, does what I did with Balin Spector make sense when I went Balin Spector? Like Spector, like a,
he's the Spectre,
like
he's the ghost.
Yeah, he's like Spectre, like
He's the
something
ghost.
paranormal, like a little, like, I don't know. It's a visual nickname. What's your real question?
Yeah. He's the Spectre. No, these guys who have stepped up Sunday in big ways. Dane Jackson making tons of plays, and Rasul Douglas
Yeah, that
talked
was good.
about it after the game, about how he could have went in, I guess.
Even someone, I mean, if
healthy he was.
Yeah,
I don't
like
know.
if we're phrasing this as people that we have maybe people exceeding expectations, or people that we have lower expectations for, who I have a newfound low expectation of is Jordan Poyer, who exceeded that expectation. He was decent.
Did very
So
well,
that's
yeah.
one. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
5 tackles. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, just like running it down, looking at the list, it was the defense is stepping up holistically, and it's not too many. I can't think of anyone who I feel like is like carrying a heavy burden, which is good. I think that's what you want, because that helps when you got an injury report like ours that's a little longer.
Do you feel like this is this might not be the most talented team the Bills have rostered going into the playoffs due to all the injuries to a lot of core pieces, Matt Milano, Tre'Davious White, and Bills fans know the list. But do you feel like this is the most battle-tested or battle-ready team the Bills have had going into the playoffs in this Josh Allen era, Sean McDermott era?
There is something with this team that does feel, I don't know, like
Bad News Bearsy, kind of underdog-y.
Yeah, I guess, but there's something with this team that feels mature, I guess.
Okay.
And in the sense that they have a higher understanding of next man up, and that they have a higher understanding of their responsibilities, and that there's a like, they know their own expectations, the expectations that the coaches have for them, the expectations, and they accept those expectations and take them seriously enough and get it done, or are willing to get it done and are willing to put in the work. So it does kind of feel that way. As Josh said in his post-game interview, he said, something like that, in terms of the group and being very complimentary towards the group compared to others that he's been in and has been around. Obviously, it stems from, like a great way to bring along the, group dynamic like that is through the shared adversity. And you need to look no further than, of course, the day at camp that it was super hot and the power went out and everyone had used the bathrooms in the dorms. And
that's when the team really came together in more ways than one.
And that was the highest amount of adversity that the team has ever faced. So there's been nothing else.
That and carousel cookies.
Yeah. Having a snack on those carousel cookies. That was brutal.
The team is battle tested from bathrooms and cookies this year. But no, I think there is something like this Bad News Bears underdog kind of nobody not believes in us as a whole.
They've been counted out.
Yeah, but like these players individually have kind of been counted out. Dane Jackson, for example, feels like the Levi Wallace of present day, where the Bills just keep trying to replace him with a free agent or a rookie or whoever. And he just keeps winning battles. And whenever his name is called upon, he just keeps stepping up. And that's what he did Sunday. He stepped up and made a couple huge plays, deflecting passes. Balin Spector, a guy who was on the bubble coming out of training camp and barely made the team. I think he was on IR, and I thought he would be a healthy cut when he returned off of IR coming out of training camp. Finds himself on the field making plays the final week of the season to try to clinch an AFC title. So it's maybe not a nobody believes in the team, but kind of these players, I have a feeling, have a nobody believes in us because we've been counted out as individual players time and time again. We're going to go out there and prove something.
Right.
So I think it just speaks to the culture of Sean McDermott has instilled here. This next man up mentality. Not only that, it's the next man up playing up to the standard, as I mentioned, of the person he's going in for, of the starter. And they were crucial on Sunday to clinch this game. I think this is a good point from Scott here. Gang tackle this week, especially if the weather is bad. The Bills, not the greatest tackling team we've seen throughout the year. And if the weather is a factor, I'm thinking like the Steelers are running the ball like 35, 40 times. As Alan mentioned earlier on the show, like whatever they can do to not put the game in Mason Rudolph's hands, I feel like they're going to do, especially if the weather's bad. So tackling is going to be key. Bale Inspector, very good tackler, shockingly. Terrell Bernard, pretty good tackler.
I know.
Pretty
Pretty
good
good
upgrade
tackler.
in
Well,
that
I
category.
I mean, I think we've grown to have a certain expectation of Bernard. Bernard?
Bernard? Really?
Bernard and
Bernard?
Bale Inspector.
Spectre.
Bale Inspector. I
Disappearing
don't know if
act.
that's anything. Like, I don't even know if this implies like something supernatural. Just my fingers in the camera, but I'm doing it. I'm committed to it. Yeah.
Yeah, he's the Spectre. Is this the most favorable road to the playoffs, as Scott mentioned? Thank you, everyone, for the comments, by the way, that the Bills have had. It feels like, again, I talked about kind of team of destiny, and I don't want to get into those like metaphysical concepts and because I don't really believe in them. But when you look at the playoffs as a whole, especially in the AFC, like the Ravens are the 1 seed, a team that we have beaten before and we kind of constantly beat, especially when we've seen them in the playoffs. The Chiefs don't look like the Chiefs of old. The Texans, the Browns running Joe Flacco back at the age of, I don't know, 52, whatever he is that nowadays.
That's accurate.
It does feel like this is their best chance, right? Like not to
And
I'm afraid to have this conversation. I don't want to do this and get ahead of myself, but looking at it, it does feel like if the Bills don't shoot themselves in the foot, like this is their best shot. Pun intended.
Yeah, I mean, we've been thinking that, with how can you not think that when you see the injuries around the league? But I'm still, it's like Mitch Moore said, like they're all professionals. The Browns look good. Like I don't want to play the Browns because the Browns look good.
Their defense is very good. Yeah.
Their defense is very good. I like their offense, like schematically. I like a lot of the players on their offense. I dislike a lot of the players on their offense. And but like I don't
off the field, yeah.
Right. I don't want and like that's a smoke I don't want is to deal with that whole scene. But I do, to look at some of the teams in the playoffs. Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's necessarily. I don't think it's necessarily the injuries so much, but what Scott brings up is the seeding is what really helps, I think, more than anything. And that's kind of in agreement with what Scott is saying. At home, the Steelers, like a fringe team in the playoffs, but I'm not as optimistic or pessimistic as Alan was. Like I think this is has a real challenge written all over it. And
I do
to
too.
conquer this challenge, yes, to conquer this challenge, then to be honest, like next would give me a little bit more confidence going into next week with however that plays out. Yeah, it's going to be something.
I don't know if it's because it's going to be, I agree. I think it's going to be closer than Vegas thinks. A lot of people think. Bills, I think, are 9.5, 10-point favorites at this point, which feels ludicrous, especially with a Mike Tomlin offense, or should I say Wiz Khalifa? I'm getting my rappers mixed up. But with a Mike Tomlin run team, and I go back to that home opener a couple years ago when the Steelers came in and just dominated the trenches and really like
The
threw us
day I
for a
saw Benny the
loop and-
Butcher get beat up.
Oh, really? A day to remember.
That's how I remember it. A day to remember, because everyone was just so pissed in the parking lot coming off there. And then I just see Benny the Butcher get like his head like on a car hood.
Oh no.
No. But c'est la vie.
I never heard this story. First of
you
all,
never knew
I
that?
would not go at a guy nicknamed the Butcher. That feels like the wrong move right away.
I don't know that he knew who he was. Yeah, I don't know that they knew who he was.
Still.
But yes, I did witness the fight on the way back, and Benny the Butcher was in it. I know. It blew my mind. I'm like, this is where he's parking. He's parking in this lot, in this gravelly private lot. This man is
As
parking
he gets
here?
his head
Like,
smashed into his car, that's what you thought of. This is where he parked?
yeah, it kind of was. That sort of was my first thought. My first thought was like,
He's riding in pain.
Like, am I supposed to do anything? I mean, I don't think it was. He's not thriving and he's not writhing in pain. Like, it's not that severe. It's not like today, Matt. If I could if I can make a tangent so we can lose some viewers, you wouldn't believe what I saw today.
Sure,
I'm walking. I'm walking the dog. We're going down Winton, which for the Rochesterians who are listening or viewing will know is like a relatively busy road, relatively mainish road, and a car.
You saw Benny the Butcher.
A car and a truck. Like I hear like a screeching halt, and it seemed like a little fender bender had occurred between this truck and this silver car. The guy from the silver car gets out of the car and with what seemed to me to be an aluminum bat, and just goes after the driver of the truck.
What?
And then gets in his car
Wow.
and gets in, and then gets back in his car and squeals away.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a sight. It was traumatizing.
And the whole time you
for my
thought
dog to
that's where
see.
that guy parked?
Yeah, in the middle of Winton Road? No, the whole time I thought I got to call 911. So
Yeah. Wow.
I took a much different
Only
direction.
action
this afternoon.
follows you.
Yeah, I guess action follows me. You're right. I mean, the universe gives its the universe gives its toughest challenges to its strongest soldiers, I guess,
I guess so. Viewers, if you're going to the game Sunday and you see Tony, stay away, I guess. Stay far away.
You're gonna get
At least
I'm all
10-foot
trouble.
distance radius.
You don't want to be
All
you don't wanna
trouble,
be near
this guy.
Yeah.
That mustache is all trouble.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't have a parking pass? Benny the Butcher didn't have a parking pass?
That's what I'm
Come on,
saying. That's what
Bills.
I'm saying.
He doesn't get VIP
That's what I'm
treatment.
saying.
Good Lord.
I know.
You let him in
Sometimes
the
he
stadium
does,
to
and then I guess he just like also
shoot a
not,
music
doesn't
video. It's
sometimes.
like, I guess not.
Yeah, we haven't really heard that song very
Also
much
with
this
the-
year, huh?
No. Well, like
Yeah,
the
that really
video
had a
has, I think no
fast
more.
rise, fast
I
fall
think
on that.
all the Bills that are in the video are now all gone. Like Cody Ford
Oh,
was in the
okay.
video, gone.
Okay.
Jerry Hughes, I think, was in the video, gone. Like, so I don't know if that's a reason you don't hear it. Also with the easy schedule, I feel like the confidence is coming from the performance on the field from some of our main guys. Stephon Diggs, huge game.
Yep.
And Josh Allen, huge game.
Huge game. Yeah.
Those are your two most
Huge
important
second
players
half,
on
yeah.
the offense. Huge second half. I'd say a huge game, like, even though there were mistakes in the red zone and they couldn't really finish. Like,
Yeah.
Josh,
You're right. You
Josh
take
had
away,
a really
like,
good game.
You take away two or
aside from those
two or
turnovers.
three plays. You take away 2 or 3 plays, and you're right. God mode. Like we saw some great stuff. You're right. Take away 2 or 3 plays of the whole game. We saw some great stuff.
Especially that third down run. Cater Kohu wanted nothing to do with Josh on that third down run at the end of the game to kind of clinch it, if you will. But just I thought Josh played really good, and those are two guys you want playing at their peak going into the playoffs. So the vibes feel right with their best players right now. I thought James Cook had a strong game. I think he's going to be an important part Sunday, especially if the weather's a factor. The run game is going to come into effect. And please, God, James Cook, if you're listening in some way, shape, or form, if anyone out there knows James Cook and can get him this message, 2 hands on the football. Just 2 hands on the football, please. Especially when you're about to get
That's
hit.
true. He does have a tendency.
But
That's true.
yeah, like when he feels contact, I like get that second hand around it. Don't just keep it here and have it punched out. But the 2 players, Diggs and Allen, the Buffalo brothers from another mother, had 2 of their best games this season, or one of their best games. Each had their best this season
As a tandem.
which as a tandem, which is great to see. Stephon Diggs finally, despite them and Josh Allen missing on a long ball deep again, which you got to think one of these weeks is they're going to hit one of those 40-plus yarders. He kind of did finally track a ball in the air.
Yeah.
Thank you, a Bills receiver making an incredible catch in the first half. Stephon Diggs did. Finally, a receiver tracks a ball. We've been asking for it for 18 weeks, and Stephon Diggs did it, and it resulted in a really good play. But how important is it that those 2 guys are kind of hitting their stride going into the playoffs here for you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, obviously it's tremendously important, but I think that also this is the playoffs, so I also take it with a grain of salt that we're playing the good teams, and the good teams are going to have appropriate matchups for someone like Stephon Diggs. It's going to be iron sharpening iron in the playoffs. So it's a damn good thing that they're on the same page, or at least seemingly on the same page, or at least Brady is finding ways to make them in sync with each other. Would you say?
Yeah, I do. I agree. They do seem dialed in, like with each other.
Right. So that's good. We're going to need that, but we're also going to need the other cursory players to do that. And I hope that next week what we're talking about is similar to this week. I hope we're talking about like who stepped up that we would not have necessarily expected to step up, but hey, how about that?
I hope that. I hope we're talking about that as well, because that means the Bills won.
Yeah.
And hopefully we're only talking about that. But that would be great. I don't know. Like I'm kind of my final thought here as we wrap up. The weather obviously has been a big talk this week leading up to this game, what the conditions could be. And there's even talk and rumors, whether true or not, that they may move the game to Cleveland. I'm all for it. I'm all for any, and maybe this is a anti-Bills Mafia opinion, but I'm all for eliminating any wild variables that could help the other team. So if the game needs to get moved to Cleveland because the weather's nice there and it's ideal conditions for Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs and James Cook and whoever to just do their thing and be in a position where talent is the ultimate decider or ultimate factor in terms of winning or losing, I'm all for it. I don't want snow. I don't want wind to be the reason that these Bills are knocked out of the playoffs. So maybe it's bad Bills fan of me to not have a home game in Buffalo, but I'll take a win because there's no outlandish variables over anything else at this point in time. That's my final thought.
Look, I'm looking at the forecast side by side here. Cleveland, Buffalo.
Give it to us, Pat Hammer. What do you got?
For Sunday the 14th. Snow and wind for Buffalo. Okay, we know this. Winds out of the southwest at 25 miles an hour. High of 26. Cleveland, partly cloudy and wind, so no snow. Same wind, 25 miles an hour, actually 26 miles an hour. High of 19. Cleveland does. This seems like a big move for like not that much of a difference.
Right.
Just like the addition of snow, I guess, is what they think is happening. But I don't think that this is going to be a blizzard. Like it's just going to snow, but be super windy and snowy, and snow will be
Yeah.
being carried on that wind. In Cleveland, it will be even colder and windy, but snow will not be being carried on the wind.
I think it's more likely that if weather is a factor, that they move the start time of the game rather than move the location of the game. Like there has to be a
Yeah.
3-hour pocket somewhere on Sunday where it's kind of clear conditions and more ideal with no blinding snow. But whatever the case is, wherever the game is played, just Bills, please win. That's because, like we said,
Right.
if there's a path to the Super Bowl this year, the path feels like it's in the Bills' favor. So, Tony, any other thoughts before we wrap up?
No, I just hope my heart can take it. However
Tony.
it shakes out, because I don't think it's going to be fun and easy. So I think it's going to be agitating.
Oh, it'll be edge of your seat, agitating, nervous, yeah. But no matter what the outcome, shout out Celine Dion, your heart will go on, Tony.
Oh, thank you.
Let's wrap it up. Once again, thank you to Alan Saunders. If you are not following him, if you are listening on or watching on Facebook or Twitter X, we tagged him in the show post. So make sure you give Alan a follow. And for all the Steelers information leading up to the game Sunday, thank you, Alan, again for joining the show. Shout out to our sponsor, Traveling Growler, www.travelinggrowler.com. Quality koozie starting at just $5. Shop local, support local. Travelinggrowler.com. Look at all those awesome designs. Great gift for the loved one in your family or a loved one outside your family. You can love other people. Love everyone. Who cares? T-shirt store, as we mentioned, the apparel store. One more time. Teespring.com. Search wittyNOTfunny or Google Teespring wittyNOTfunny. Hit search. Check out all the cool designs, all original, all pop culture references as we typically do on this show. Think you'll really like what you see. Is that a Men's Warehouse reference? Well, we're better than Men's Warehouse. Our apparel is better than Men's Warehouse.
We guarantee it.
Go support the podcast today. Yeah, I guarantee it. I guarantee you'll like a piece of clothing from wittyNOTfunny Sports. Where you can find the podcast if you're not viewing in today. And if you are, thank you for giving us your time. If you haven't yet liked, hit that like button. Please subscribe to Built in Buffalo on YouTube and Facebook. Hit that like YouTube and Facebook. But if you're listening to this show and want to listen to it or didn't catch it all and want to listen to it on a later date, iTunes, Spotify, wherever your podcasts are listened to for free. We always like to say whether you give us 2 minutes or 2 hours of your time. We greatly appreciate it, and we really do. Thank you for tuning in. If this is your first time, if you are a repeat viewer, thank you for coming back and experiencing wittyNOTfunny Sports live. Twitter handle @wittysports716 on Twitter, X, Instagram, wittyNOTfunny Sports, Facebook, TikTok. Give us a follow on all platforms. We love following back, connecting with Billsmafia or Saber Swords people. Trademark pending on Saber Swords people. I don't know what Sabres fans are called. Sabres Nation. Who knows? We'll get it going. Or if you want to follow us on Blue Sky, @Buffalo Sabres. That's ours. That's us. Not the Sabres. Alternate social media feeds. And finally, send off for the listeners. As we always say, thank you for tuning in. Go Bills. And of course, stay witty out there, everyone. See ya. Peace.
Bye.
Bye. Later.